1 plus 1 equals 3. Welcome to our very
Oh, my man here.
Oh, my yay.
Yeah.
He is
Oh, my yay. Fight Club captain in the building.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
Is the second member of the Bull Maye Fight Club joining us in back-to-back weeks. Right down below, there he is, the muscle of the group, Mr. Thomas, manager of 5150, and we are so honored that you've decided to join us here. He is Mr. Bud Heavy. How the hell are you doing, sir?
I'm living the dream, man. How about you guys?
So, you mean all 360 to your face, don't make it look pretty, but I'll spit it first, because that's who I am. So,
the number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is, please note. Please note.
Never gonna stop, never gonna change, never gonna do the things you say. I run my own way to get there. Fools are calling that I don't seem to care. In the air, no more crowd, just the opposite kind of puke out. So tell me the storm is coming, for the sake of all your lies. Why don't you try to be wise? Know that I need you anyway. But you're making all worse. Every time you hear these words, I'll be down the road, cause I got the odds are better on my side. Why don't you try to be wise? Help me, I'm calling you cry. I never wanted to be alive, just to feel like I'm fading. And though my heart breaks, I'll be there down. I swear to less just to tell you, don't lead the way, don't leave us.
And boom, just like that, it's another Thursday night. We're in the video, bros on your screen. I'm Bobby Munson, the man beside me, the man with the angelic voice, Poffo Smokes. Poffo Smokes, how you doing, sir?
Wow, that was a great intro, Munson. I'm doing great. I want to give a shout out to all my wrestling people out there and everybody watching.
Massive shout out to all of the MLW fans who, just like us, were a little disappointed to find where the fuck is Fusion tonight, Poffo Smokes.
Yeah, man, we got left out in the cold. We got the same episode as last week, and what the hell is up with that? Yo, Basser.
Yeah, Basser kicking it up in the house. B. Carter joining us again. More new booms here than on Fusion. Yeah, no new booms on Fusion tonight. What's going down? They could have at least warned us. We could have prepared something completely different. Instead, we're gonna dig into a little bit of what happened down underground this week. Unfortunately, hey, we're Canadian, so we haven't seen it. So, shit. But we're gonna talk about it anyway because we got the results in front of us, and why not talk about it? But if there's any MLW-related topics anybody wants to talk about, feel free to let us know. We'll be happy to take your requests here tonight. But let's start with this one right here. And we're going to talk about this. This is the statistics coming out of the debut episode of MLW Underground on Reels. It scored a 7,900 viewers, with 60,000 being in the male 18 to 49 demo for the premiere. It must be good. I don't know. I don't know TV. I don't know if you do, Poffo Smokes, but I'm assuming that kind of announcement is probably good for MLW.
Yeah, you meant 79,000, right?
Yeah, 79,000.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I'm not an expert on ratings of TV and everything, but some of the scuttlebutt I was reading about online sounds like it was a successful debut. So congrats to the guys, but can't help but feel a little bit left out in the cold here, literally and figuratively, by MLW. I'm not blaming them as a company. It's just kind of weird that their sister company Canada doesn't get their broadcast now.
Yeah, and B. Carter saying 1/10 the viewership of a typical AEW episode. But, that's not bad when you break it down, considering that AEW is on a top national television program. And MLW, I mean, what is Reels technically like number 30 or something like that? I mean, we're talking like a big difference in terms of the eyes that are on that particular channel as opposed to what AEW is broadcasting on. So, I mean, I got to imagine that is huge news to at least have captured 1/10 of an AEW audience for what was relatively a YouTube program for quite a few years.
For sure. And MLW would have been a destination spot for people looking to watch indie or, just non-large company wrestling. And now on Reels, at least, there will be casual viewers that will, watching something else, come upon this show and maybe like it, or flipping through the channels. I don't know if that's still a thing that people do, but again, it just has the possibility to get on so many other screens compared to what they've been doing over the past years. Anything's an improvement. And I think we've seen that Court Bauer, even in the time we've been watching and the couple years we've been reviewing this show, he's been actively pursuing all kinds of different TV deals, including Fight Channel and all that stuff as well. So he's working on it. He's trying to get it bigger, and I guess baby steps are a good thing too.
Yeah, why not? And it sounds like they kicked off well, and B. Carter's that, and you can count on AEW for content each week. I mean, you do have companies that are putting out consistent content week after week. Doesn't always mean it's the best content week after week, but it is content nonetheless. Not that I'm bitter.
and just think of how much contracted talent MLW has compared to AEW. I mean, the difference in rosters, there's probably less than 10 guys that actually have contracts with MLW. Wouldn't you think, Munson? Or the very small handful anyway that are actually contracted. So they're just trying to get the independent contractors to come through and work series of tapings. Although all those guys, including Davey Richards and Alex Kane and all those dudes, are off doing indie dates all the time too. So it's hard to keep your company going when you just have such a small roster that's actually contracted.
And, with all the people that are on MLW, it makes me really kind of curious to go check out some PCW, because PCW Ultra tends to carry a lot of that same roster, and it seems like they're doing a great job over there. So I wouldn't mind checking out some of their work. Might be worth a watch. And B. Carter saying, I watched Prairie Pro this week and would encourage others to check it out if you like it. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
I really do appreciate that. That is much appreciated, not only for watching it, but for encouraging others to check it out. We try to do a very modest job with what we have available to us. Again, we're not mega rich with the cameras or anything like that, but we do have very passionate fans, passionate talent that really know how to put on a great show, and a great team behind the scenes as well too. It's an easy job for myself and Papa Smokes when we got such great people to work with, of course, and great fans watching in. And thank you, B. Carter, for that as well too. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support.
It makes me wish that B. Carter could come and watch a show live, because if you like the videos on TV or on your computer, my God, it's just night and day the difference when you're actually in that room. I'm sure you can hear the crowd noise and all that, but they're really quite rambunctious. We have the best, most passionate fans.
Yeah, we have ourselves a Basser. That's what we got.
Yeah.
Just when you think the other fans are loud, Basser brings it up to that level just above. It's awesome. Can't wait for Saturday, February the 18th. That's going to be Love is Dead in Saskatoon. It's going to be a great show. But yeah, we're gonna talk more wrestling on the second half of the program here tonight, of course. But going back to MLW Underground here for a moment, Papa Smokes, let's just break down a little bit of what went down and where we think some of the booking might be going based on this. So these come from the tapings back in October. These were the Fightland tapings that took place in Philadelphia. I guess it sounds like Matt Stryker actually brought Jacob Fatu out to the ring during the opening of this program. asked when he's going to be cashing in on Hammerstone. Fatu told the Philly crowd he'd be doing it right here tonight. But there was a little swerve on that one, and the form of Real One, who interrupted this whole thing and really got back to igniting his feud with Jacob Fatu. So interesting to see that I kind of forgot that taping had even took place. So I'm kind of curious how it's going to pan out, having Jacob Fatu and Real One matching up.
For sure. And they've kind of been slow teasing this match for a long time now. Ever since they restarted after the summer, we've seen Real One in the parking lot thinking that Jacob Fatu had damaged his car somehow and was going after him. And then after Fatu's match, Real One is hiding in the crowd and pops up and breaks a beer bottle over his head, bloodying Jacob Fatu. Now you're really poking the elephant there. You're getting yourself into some serious potential danger. And then a few other times too, he's come out and mocked him, but escaped with his life. So typical to MLW, they've got nice long-term vision because they obviously prize this matchup. So they're gonna tease it, but they're gonna keep the guys' hands off of each other until it's the right time. And we've seen them do this before in main event situations, keeping the two stars as far away from each other as possible. I think it's very smart to do that, and it just even if if the two wrestlers are doing other programs at the same time, the fans still remember these contacts and know that there's something brewing for the future.
Yeah, you bet, man. So Real One kind of gets in there. He pisses off Fatu to keep this thing going. Says some, typical Real One fashion, go after the family, dig deep into the history of your opponent. Pisses off Fatu, the security go to drag him away. Enzo still running his mouth, or Enzo Real One, my apologies, is running his mouth saying he's there for a fight, and who should answer the call but good old Mance Warner. Old Mancer answers the call, and he's ready for a fight. And from what I understand, a KO finish. Mance Warner defeats Real One by KO. This must have been something else. I know B. Carter must have watched. Come on, B. Carter. Tell me you watched Underground. Let us know. The old Mancer kick his ass something good.
Definitely sounds like it. MLW hasn't used a KO finish that we've seen in quite some time, although they do use them every so often, but kind of interesting. And this was good. This was interesting. And then I think this was going to set up a street fight between Real One and Mance Warner for next week's Underground.
And there we go. It was quick.
Yeah.
Old Mancer isn't there to be spending his whole entire night getting the job done. Get it done quick and collect the same paycheck either way. So that's fantastic.
Get drinking those light beers.
That's right. He's got some partying to do with Microman backstage afterwards, by the sounds of it. So that was then announced that next week, I believe, is going to be another fight for a Real One. So they really want to put him on there. It's a street fight with him and Old Mancer next week. I don't know. I don't know if Real One is quite thinking too well right now. Papa Smoke's getting himself into that kind of fight with Old Mancer again. As we welcome Carl to the chat. Turnbuckle Studios, go and follow, like, subscribe. Our good friends at Turnbuckle Studios, our good brother Carl Carafell, Handsome Devils on my TV screen. Good eve to you, gents. Good eve to you too, sir. Glad you were able to stop by and talk about the fusion that wasn't.
That's what you can name this episode, Munson. The episode, the fusion that never was.
Yeah, the fusion that never was. And they didn't even have the nerve to tell us about it. But that's okay. Because guess what we got coming up on Ring Respect Radio tonight? We're going to be talking about the Poffo family. And that's going to be a lot more interesting than the fusion that never was. Great name. But moving on from there on that night, our boy Alex Kane, Bomaye, himself.
Bomaye.
There we go. Alex Kane ended up having the Thrilla and Philla prize fight challenge, and it was answered by the marvelous Jafar. I don't know a damn thing about the marvelous Jafar at all, Papa Smokes. I'm not sure if you do, but it sounds like the marvelous Jafar got his ass handed to him too.
Well, I think they said in the write up that it was a popular local wrestler, so a Philly guy that the crowd would know.
And B. Carter, I'm kind of wondering if you're saying this because we actually love the match, or is this one of those, this would have sent us off on a tangent? It's hard to dislike what Alex Cain's doing in the first place because clearly we're fans of Alex Cain. And speaking of being a fan's appeal, I'm a fan of this guy. I think we are two Papa Smokes. It's Mr. Chris Parrish. How you doing, Parrish? Glad you were able to join us. So moving on. So yeah, Alex Cain basically beat the living tar out of this guy, ends up getting the match called after dropping him on his head in the corner. But yeah, let's go to B. Carter here. Alex Cain is even more in even more rare form with a lot of great shit talking to the fans. Oh, and we haven't seen it. Damn you, MLW. Oh, come on, Alex.
Oh, I saw his tweet where he slapped that Philly steak sandwich in that fan's face. That was sweet.
Oh, Alex Cain, he is awesome. That guy is on the rise. MLW is going to have a hell of a time keeping a hold of him for much longer. But sounds like all hell breaks loose. So of course afterwards, Davey Boy Smith Jr. comes out, and then Myron Reed and Mr. Thomas. Well, because why not bring out Myron Reed so that the new fans of MLW can see him at least once before he gets to stepping out the MLW door. Because as we know, maybe he made an appearance once past the October tapings. I don't know, Pop Smokes, but you're not going to get much more of Myron Reed.
I was going to say he only left the company a month ago, and these tapings were from October, so there might be some more stuff still.
You bet. And then on the reverse side of things, speaking of guys who show up for a month and then take time off in MLW, Lio Rush is on his way back to MLW here very, very soon. But again, we've spoken highly of his work, like the way he handled his craft in MLW in the middleweight division. He had great matches with Myron Reed. There is good stuff to be said about Lio Rush. I mean, he's that slimy little smart ass punk that you want to slap, and he plays it beautifully.
I think so too. And when he first did those series of matches against Myron Reed, was that a year or two ago? He was all new to me. I didn't know of his reputation in WWE and that he had pissed some people off and thought he was bigger than his britches were and all that kind of stuff. So this was all new to me. I knew he had a bit of a reputation, but when he came here to MLW, it was good actually because he cut those promos where he was too big of a rap star to ever show up at the wrestling show and everything. That's pissing the fans off right off the bat. And then he had such great matches against Myron Reed. I don't even think he really fought anyone but Myron Reed, or he only had a small series of matches, but they were good. And he works that small, quick guy style quite nicely, using the bottom rope and second rope for maneuvers sometimes. And I thought Lio Rush was pretty all right.
Yeah, and B. Carter saying Rush better be freaking good for all the hype about him. He's been coming for forever. You know, it's almost the same as you remember all the advertising for Will Ospreay in MLW? Yeah. Will Ospreay coming to MLW. They had Dave Meltzer and Alicia Atu on a panel talking about Will Ospreay in MLW. Where's Ospreay? Haven't seen him. Guess he got lost in the shuffle there somewhere.
Yeah, he's busy getting lost in the AEW shuffle.
That's true. And Chris Parrish saying you can't teach that. And yeah, we're talking about a real one. He's running his mouth and getting his ass handed to him. Alicia gets what? I don't even know if I should have posted that. Damn you, Parrish. Oh, bastard.
We need a 7-second delay on here. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, shit. But yeah, as I'm saying those things. And then apparently on the show, the mystery attacker's back. Now he's laying out Mods Kruger. Is it even Mods? Because as far as I know, Mods ain't even there no more. So he's off being cruel somewhere else, but he sure ain't Mods on MLW. So again, introducing this new audience to what's left of Mods Kruger.
Yeah, and this story goes on and on with it's like watching that old TV show Lost. It's like all questions and no answers, and it's starting to frustrate the viewers just a bit too much, I think. And when you think about at least that one of the last segments was almost the entire roster laid out, but we've also seen Mods Kruger laid out, Killer Cross laid out. So like, who is this guy that's knocking out their top heels and their top stars and everything? It almost can't even live up to the hype because I almost wouldn't even believe it now.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be fucking Micro Man. Just kill the entire roster in one shot. Micro Man for the win. Oh, and then B. Carter only made me more pissed that they lost Mods and don't get to the story. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Like, losing all these guys, these top guys. Mods was a top dude. Like, I mean, they had people like King Huertas there. Like, where's King Huertas anymore these days? Like, that we were actually thinking before. It's like, who do they even have outside of Fatu? And, I haven't checked the results, so I don't know the result. We don't want to have any surprises here. So I don't know who won between Fatu and Hammer. But if it was Hammer, we had that conversation. Who do they have as top build heels right now to go after Hammer's world championship?
And because it looks like Induka might have just signed with AEW, at least some kind of a contract, and Hammerstone as a babyface champion, as a strong guy, they need a series of heels to feed him all the time, and they're just quite short on main event heels right now, especially since there's no Contra unit anymore. That used to be the perfect foil for the babyface champion, but now it kind of seems a bit schizophrenic. Like there isn't a strong faction with a guy that's kind of earmarked for going after the champion. We don't have Richard Holiday right now, unfortunately, because he's sick. Jacob Fatu is hanging with the SST and is more of a babyface character at this time, but we know he's had a title shot recently. But yeah, what else do we have for heels in the main event position? It's getting real thin on top there.
That's a heavy no, Parrish. Like, no, they won't turn him heel. There's no point, because on the flip side, there isn't like a ton of lined up baby faces, especially like with him having already had a clash with Fatu as a baby face right now. I would say, when I rethink about it though, because again, I'm assuming this, and I don't know for sure, but obviously John Hennigan just recently joined MLW, and with what's been going on with Cesar Duran forming his Azteca Underground faction, could he, because he's already got Taya, and Taya teased her husband coming to the company, could you end up seeing Johnny Hennigan, John Fusion, whatever he's going to go by, is he joining Cesar Duran? And then again, you've got a viable opponent there for Hammerstone, a very experienced in-ring technician. But you've also got Alex Kane. We can't leave Alex Kane out of the mix. They've pushed him quite well, and we know he's on the rise, and he's another guy that could carry the top prize at MLW.
For sure. And what I think they should be doing also, like you brought up King Muertes, but I think they should be getting a guy from AAA, somebody just start building one of the heels. We've seen that guy Pagano get a title shot out of the blue in their Tijuana tapings there. I'm not sure how I felt about that, but get a guy to be on a series of tapings and just pump him up, whoever it happens to be. Get that big Taurus, get just one of your better luchadors to take that spot and push him into the main event. Whoever you think can handle it, start a little program with him as a heel versus Hammerstone. Do something, man. Like, you got to get somebody waiting in the wings and some proper heels for Hammerstone to work with.
Yeah, you bet. So, even though we didn't see it, Papa Spokes, I think we might as well talk about it. It's time for the main event of the evening. This was the last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship, the MLW World Heavyweight Champion, Alexander Hammerstone, defending against the judge, EJ Nduka. And it sounds like Nduka using a lot of heel tactics to get the quick jump on Hammerstone, get most of the advantage early off in this match, making it sound like he was built up strong in this whole thing, and Hammer had to come from behind to get the Heroes win, which is inevitably what happened. What I really wish we could see in reading these results is the fact that Hammer picked that giant beast of a man, EJ Duca, up and gave him the Nightmare Pendulum. What a sight that would have been.
And Hammer's done good against those big, tall opponents, including Mads Kruger and a few of the other boys. That's a difficult move to do at the best of times. And with 6'7" EJ and Duca, they would have had to set that up very carefully.
I apologize, B. Carter. One fall.
One fall.
I wasn't sure how that one was classified, considering that it is a last man standing match, but I guess it is just one. It's still one fall to the finish, though, so it is completely correct in that sense. So, as this isn't a best 2 out of 3 or a best 7 all elite mixed tag team jumping, flying, kick, trampoline bullshit match. I don't know.
It's a bunch of bullshit.
That's exactly what it is. But no, it sounds like, I mean, great work by MLW to kick things off, get some new eyes on the prize. MLW Underground drawing a strong audience. Again, I know a lot of people were talking about it. They had never seen MLW before. So that's what they need to do. They need to get eyes on other people who get to talking about it in order to grow this thing. And then hopefully that broadcast will eventually be available for the Video Bros so we can start talking about it a little more regularly. I have reached out to MLW through the press passes and asked if there's any way they'll show sympathy to the Video Bros and give us some sort of screening of the Underground show so that we can continue to bring all the action to you here on Thursday night. Because apparently, I don't know where Fusion's gone, Pop Smokes, but a little bit heartbroken.
Yeah, myself also. This has been a good run doing this, but I wasn't finished yet. And apparently they're finished with Fusion. They're moving on to the new TV deal. But like I say, it's a bit of a rough thing for us. And I think there's a chance that we could get one of those press passes. We could get a code to watch this or something. It would be nice, but we'll see what happens. Court, help us out, man. We're starving over here.
And B. Carter, I do appreciate the offer for sure. The only problem is Tuesday night at that time is a little tough with the shoot jobs for us to get to, like the time that it's on and everything like that. It is a little bit tough. So unfortunately, probably just won't have the time to watch it in a live capacity anyway. So we do hope that, if there's any hope that they'll let us see it, at least like the day after or something like that. Come through for us, Court. Come on. We've been praising you up all this time. We've been building you up. We're still going to do some form of this. I don't think Fusion's dead in the water. I hope not anyway. We can always use the time to talk about other episodes of MLW from the past. I think we could also go back and start watching some other programs on Pro Wrestling TV. I mean, what do you guys want us to talk about? We could do something like Warrior Wrestling. We could even look into PCW. Maybe we need to just switch up gears a little bit and start talking about another independent company that's on the rise to give them the Video Bro bump that they need.
Yeah, it's great. I know we've been bumping ideas around just with the continued difficulty of getting MLW's product. I've always stood by MLW. I want to support them. I love the boys that we've interviewed and all the guys, but damn, we need some content too. So I'm all down to watch some other stuff, and I don't want to give up on MLW, and I'm not going to. But if we need some other matches to review and all that, then let's pick a good company and go for it. I'm totally down.
We're going to be checking that out soon. We'll figure it out, Pop Smokes. And again, then we'll also be bringing you the guys the double header every single Thursday night. So if you're watching the live capacity here on Twitch or on YouTube, you get the double header live and interactive with myself and Pop Smokes, and Ring Respect Radio. It's going to be coming up in a couple of moments here. How do people watch PCW? They do seem organized and have good matchups. You know what? I thought that they had shared a link to a website of theirs where they have their stuff uploaded to. So I will find out. And you know what? I will let you know, B. Carter. I will definitely let you know because I think that is one I'd like to take a gamble on. They do seem very well organized. They seem like they've got a great thing going on there, and a lot of people that we do like and respect as well, too. So I think that ultimately would be a great addition to our lineup in terms of what we talk about here on the show. So I'll do some digging. I'll see, and we'll do some talking. We'll see what we need to do to adjust the Thursday night doubleheader for you guys for sure. But in the meantime and in between time, as a famous announcer once said here in the Great White North, it's time to head on over to Ring Respect Radio. We're going to give you guys a 2-minute and 20-second break as we go and grab ourselves another drink and get prepared to talk about the legendary Poffo family on Ring Respect Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be with you soon.
Forward from my own direction, no one can pull me out. I've always felt different from the others, I'm running away now. Fears are fading, won't stop bleeding. Cause I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you're just a fucking freak like me. Bears are fading. Cause I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you took a fall. Can't break like me.
And if you stuck around all that time, thank you for sticking around and keep on the partying with the Video Bros. If you're watching in a live capacity, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, either on the Video Bros Network or our local establishment, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and click subscribe, click the notification bell so you know anytime we release new material, which is almost daily. We got so many great content creators and we got new stuff coming out almost daily, Pop Smokes. In fact, you and I, we've got the doubleheader here tonight, but we also had a show last night, Beats and Beatdowns with Carl Carafel, the live season finale. You were our special guest. What a great night we had there with Carl on Beats and Beatdowns.
That was such a great time. And like I was telling you guys, it's kind of fun to be invited onto a podcast that you already like and listen to regularly. So a thrill for me, a fun conversation about the use of music in the territory era of pro wrestling, and a good time by all. Always fun on Ole.
It's going to be a good time when we drop season 3 coming up very, very soon. Hopefully we're not going to have as big of a gap between seasons this time around. And Carl and I are also working on a new program where we're going to be talking strictly about music. So that's going to be a fantastic time too. I've also got another movie related show coming up, talking all things horror movies with Astrid Pizarro. So I got a lot in the mix here. It's going to be a great time coming up here on our local establishment. As long as you're not sick of seeing me on your screen, you're going to get a whole lot more. But here we are with Ring Respect Radio, Papa Smokes. We said we were going to talk about the legendary Poffo family because it was just recently, I believe on February the 2nd, that unfortunately we lost Lanny Poffo, Leapin' Lanny Poffo. Very unfortunate news, of course.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And he was one of those guys that looked pretty healthy and stuff into his I'm sure he was only in his 60s or something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure if you have his actual age of death written down there, but he always looked to be one of the guys that was healthy in his early old age there, and I was just surprised to hear it and very saddened because he was a guy that lived his entire life for professional wrestling.
Yeah, and again, even having his channel or his show recently as well too. He had his own podcast. You had mentioned that you had even gone back and listened to an episode as part of research for one of our recent episodes of Ring Respect Radio.
Yeah, I listened to. He was talking to Keith Elliott Greenberg about Freddie Blassie. So I had a nice time listening to them. And Lanny's such an interesting character, and he's got a charisma to him that's just, it's a little bit bizarre, but it draws you to him, and he's charismatic. So that was a fun little thing. That was maybe just a week before he died too. So it was kind of weird that I had that little just catch up with Lanny Poffo, and then he passed away.
Yeah, you bet. And Bomb on Top, thanks for keeping us in your hearts and keeping us tabbed here tonight, my man. Really appreciate you always stopping by and showing your support for the video bros. We do appreciate you. But you know what? There wouldn't be a Lanny Poffo if we didn't talk about the father that came first. We're going to talk about him and his two sons. But let's start a little bit about Angelo Poffo and a little bit about his career here, Papa Smokes. Wanted to bring it up that actually, before we even get into his wrestling portion, that he served time in the Navy and broke a record while he was in the Navy, broke the world sit-up record. And that's quite a feat there too. I can't remember the exact number, but a lot of push-ups done within a 4 hour, I believe a 4 hour and 10-minute span. Man, I got tired just reading that number.
That's the kind of guy Angelo Poffo was, though. If you trust everything you read, he was a workout dude, and as a wrestling worker in the late 50s and throughout the 60s and 70s, one of his like a bit of his bread and butter, so to speak, was his athleticism and his very nice physique, very balanced. He had some bodybuilding. He wasn't big and bulky, but he had that awesome body, and obviously, he passed that love of physical fitness onto his sons because they both were quite built individuals as well.
Yeah, definitely they were. And Angelo, very well known as a tag team wrestler during his time in professional wrestling, made a very successful team with Chris Markoff. They called themselves the Devil's Duo. Tried to find some stuff on YouTube. I don't know if you did a whole lot of looking into Angelo on YouTube. A lot of very black and white videos, very short videos that I could find of some of his stuff, but fantastic worker, and tried to find a little bit about the Devil's Duo as well too. What did you come across in that?
Well, just speaking of that tag team, I know who Chris Markoff is because when I was a teenager, he was towards the end of his career, and he was playing a Russian in the AWA. They had Boris Zukov and Chris Markov, and you could see Markov was a older guy. He could still go in the ring and all that, but I bet you he was in his 50s or more at that time. And anyway, that's interesting about Poffo. But yeah, I don't think there is a whole ton of tape on that guy simply because I don't think a whole ton of wrestling was taped at that time. And also from where they were in the Midwest, it wasn't a media hub of a city like such as New York or Los Angeles, where there would be a lot of media and people interested in taping stuff. I don't think that was going on so much in the middle of the Midwest where the Poffos were.
Yeah, and but he did spend some time up here in Canada, though, Papa Smokes. He actually worked for Grand Prix Wrestling in the 1970s and 1980s, but not as Angelo Poffo. He actually wore a mask and was the carpetbagger for those 2 decades of time here in Canada. Yeah.
Doing jobs up in Montreal, I guess, eh?
That's right. Maybe that was one of Andre's big opponents back in the day. Who knows for sure?
I wonder why the mask, though. I have the feeling that he must have not wanted his name to be associated with it, or because Angelo Poffo is more famous as a promoter, I think, than a wrestler. So maybe he just wanted to still work for some other companies, but not use his actual name.
Yeah, and we will talk about the company that he founded as well too as we start to talk about his sons here. But starting to talk about his sons, of course, he has worked with both of them as well too. He has spent time tagging with Lanny. He even managed Randy Savage in WCW for a period of time as well too. So a lot of stuff that he did in order to help his sons, which included starting his own promotion. Speaking of Lanny, though, let's start talking about Leap and Lanny for a bit, or better known to a lot of probably our listeners, quite a few of them, as the Genius from WWF times. We will get into that. Surprisingly, what a lot of people might not know, Leap and Lanny is actually Canadian, born in Calgary, Alberta. Leap and Lanny, a Canadian, unlike his brother Randy, who was actually born in the States. But yeah, Leap and Lanny was born in Calgary.
Well, isn't that interesting? And I wonder if they were up there doing some work for Stampede at the time.
I could only imagine it's got to be a good connection there with Stu Hart and everything. So that very well could be the case. But yeah, I was listening recently, and I think a lot of people have been speculating if Leap and Lanny was one of the first, at least in North America, to ever use the moonsault in a professional wrestling match.
Yeah, I could see that being a thing. It was that particular move was used in Japan and Mexico before here, I think. I think we know the moonsault as being kind of popularized in North America by the great Muda, right? He was the guy that had that beautiful hang time slow moonsault that came over. That's where everybody fell in love with that move. But I'm sure it had been used before that. And yeah, Poffo, he was very Lanny was very graceful. Whereas Randy was more of the power guy. It was Lanny had that just that almost a gentle grace to him, and also very athletic, and had lots of good aerial tactics.
Yeah, and I mean this took me to go and watch some of his stuff, not just the stuff in the WWF, but his Leap and Lanny stuff and everything that I could find on YouTube, and just absolutely wowed by it because it's been a while since I've seen his work. I remember watching as a kid, watching the Genius and seeing him in there and everything, and not maybe appreciating what I was witnessing at the time. Again, I knew it was good. That's why I was interested in it, but I didn't realize just how good. And like you say, he's very slick, very mobile, quick on his feet, but clean at the same time. He always delivered everything cleanly in these matches.
That's the perfect word for it. Clean and this is we've talked about wrestling families before, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm gonna suspect that the Poffos were the same as a lot of those wrestling families, in that if that's what Dad does and that's the family business, those boys are learning it and soaking it in at a very young age, probably playing and working out in a ring and stuff, and Dad teaching them stuff. That's how both of them looked, as like wrestling was the most natural thing in the world for them to do, and there's no substitute for that just natural movement like that, where you're not performing choreographed moves, you're not trying to remember where you are in the match. It's just coming because it's organic, and you've done that your whole life. And Lanny was one of those guys where you knew that he learned this as a child, and he's just been perfecting it ever since.
Yeah, damn straight he has been. And perfecting it all through his career, where he spent a lot of time in various companies. But, it was kind of, let's just go over a little bit of this. I got it written down here. Yeah, so again, starting off with teaming with his father, they ended up winning the NWA World Tag Team Championships at one point. And this was even prior to Lanny opening up his company and starting to promote with it.
You mean Angelo opening?
Angelo, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
My name's mixed up here. So.
Yeah. Once he was finished wrestling, he started an outlaw company. It was like they were just kind of, it was like they were kind of ripping off like the bigger shows and the bigger companies, and using characters that were similar to already star wrestlers of the time and all that. It's a bit of a cheap way to do it, but they didn't have money, and they didn't have all the startup fees that are necessary and everything. So they did what they could to survive. And there were already other companies running all across the Midwest, including Ed Farhat in Detroit, and Dick the Bruiser in Indianapolis, and the guys in St. Louis and Kansas City and everything. They all these cities had big wrestling companies that had been embedded in that city for a long time. So if you wanted to start a new one, it was very hard to compete with those big companies. So they went outlaw and just on the, on not very much money, kind of just started throwing shows. And I think Angelo had the idea that his boys would eventually be two of the big main eventers in his company. And, not a bad strategy. He worked hard on training them to make sure they get there. And look what a star both of them became, but especially Randy.
Yeah, exactly. And, before even getting to the booking them themselves or whatever, Lanny actually had a run in 1978, again at Grand Prix Wrestling here in Canada, so out in the Montreal area,
Yeah.
where his father had served some time there. And then Portland Championship Wrestling about 1978 to 1979, where he worked with names like Adonis, Tony Blanchard, Roddy Piper, and Gene Kiniski.
Yeah, that's sweet. And I think that was, from what I've read, Angelo Poffo wanted to kind of get them out into other territories to get their experience, to color up their whole wrestling style by working with some other dudes. So instead of hanging around that Chicago, Milwaukee, Indianapolis kind of area, he had them go, maybe gave them the choice, go somewhere else, go to Florida, go to Texas, go to LA, but they chose Portland, and Portland is one of my favorite retro wrestling companies. It was in business for a long, long time. They had a good thing going out there. We should watch some of those. They have them on YouTube. It's not only the matches and stuff, but it's the full TV show off of VHS. A lot of them are from the 70s too, and they're really funny. Like, they have low production quality and stuff, but the wrestling is really good. And yeah, I imagine that's what that was, is that Angelo said, hey, boys, get out of here for a while. You can't learn anything more from me. Go and work for a different promoter. Go and make your own way in this business, and go somewhere far away and work for a while. And I think that would be a really good idea, going to promoter Don Owen in Portland and learning from some guys like Gene Kiniski and Adrian Adonis and Playboy Buddy Rose and Rip Oliver and some of those great just journeyman kind of wrestlers they had going on. They're like a bunch of Dennis Condrys kind of, like guys that have just been all over the place, and grizzled veterans. That's how the young guys learn, is soaking in that knowledge from those veterans. So yeah, great idea. And I'm sure those guys came back from Portland a year later, just with all kinds of extra experience under their belt and more experienced working with dudes they've never wrestled before.
Yeah, you bet. And yeah. And so moving on from there, of course, was when ICW, with the one that we're talking about there, that Angelo opened up. That would have been, so ICW stood for International Championship Wrestling. Lanny worked there until about 1984, where then he moved on to going to work for Mid-South for a very short period of time before signing with Vince McMahon in the WWF in 1985, where he was there until 1992.
Yeah, and I think that he followed Randy there, or Randy might have facilitated Lanny getting a job there and said, hey, man, my brother's a good worker. Bring him in. You can do what you want with him, but he's quite capable of doing TV matches and all that stuff. Hence, we have the genius with his little gimmick that he had there with the graduation gown and cap, and then he always had those frisbees with the little poem written on them, and he would read a poem. I've got a poem for all the masses here, and he would read his poem and then throw his frisbees out to the crowd, and that was it, kind of. But once the bell rang, you saw that the guy had talent. He was better than the other job guys, but they still basically used him as a job guy.
Yeah, I mean, again, watching back on that too, I watched a bit of this, and I'm like, he used to annoy the hell out of me, and that's what they were trying to go for, because he'd be doing these cartwheels and these slick little weird dance moves in the ring, and it would just irritate the crap out of me as a kid watching this. Like, somebody just slapped this MFer across the face already. And that was exactly what they were trying to go for. They wanted him to be that annoying guy. And he was great on his feet. So he was very capable of pulling this off. He had enough charisma to pull it off. And it's why people still remember who he is today, despite him not being a main event guy within the WWF.
For sure. And I think by his own admission, Lanny kind of lived in the shadow of his superstar brother. I don't think like I've heard him talk about it in a couple of interviews, and on his podcast too, he talked about, yeah, that was definitely the case. Lanny had dreams of being a superstar wrestler too, but once it happened to Randy, he realized, yeah, it's not my place. Like I could keep trying to do this, but that's not my destiny in wrestling, kind of. So he always supported and loved his brother a whole bunch. It doesn't sound like there was ever any jealousy or anything like that. When Randy succeeded, Lanny also did, because they had that tight bond as brothers, and the bond that Angelo had helped form between them through exercise and sport and training in professional wrestling. So Randy wasn't going to leave his brother behind, and thus we got to enjoy some of Lanny's eccentric and unusual but very, very good work in wrestling.
Yeah, we really did. And even before it all came to an end, he did follow Randy one more time over to WCW, where he was there from 95 to 99, but not really used in any capacity. Randy Savage, as it's noted, actually bought the gimmick to Gorgeous George. And Lanny was prepping for that to be his next gimmick, was the new Gorgeous George character. But it never came to fruition. That did not end up happening. And shortly after, Lanny would kind of step back from doing ring work anyway, and then eventually worked his way up to like more recent times, where he's had a very successful podcast prior to his passing and everything like that. He's always been a very, very well-spoken man, and did a fabulous job over at on that show as well too.
For sure. And I always thought it was classy of Lanny to step away from the in-ring action when he did. I'm sure he still could have gone going, or could have continued going on for quite some time, as we know many wrestlers do carry on into their late 40s and mid 50s and all that stuff. But I think some of those guys, if they can't give you 100% of what got them to the dance in the first place, then there's no point in doing it, right? So I think Lanny had the good sense to realize that and stepped into other areas. Obviously, his life was revolved around professional wrestling, so now he would move into the broadcasting area. And like I say, he's an eccentric kind of a character. He's a weird dude, so to speak. I mean that in a loving way, but that's why his podcast worked, is because he's got a particular way of telling stories, and with that unusual voice of his, it worked on his podcast. He also is one of those guys that it seems like no one ever has anything bad to say about him. So he gets a lot of good guests because everyone likes the genius and likes Lanny and would come on his show. So he had awesome star power on his podcast as well.
Yeah, he really did. But then let's talk a little bit about the popular brother of the two. So Randy Savage, of course, the brother of Lanny Poffo, the other son of Angelo Poffo, didn't exactly start off with the intent to become a pro wrestler, much like his brother and his father did. He actually played baseball up until around just before he hit adulthood. In fact, playing in the minors and having a couple looks in when it came to heading up to the majors.
Yeah. And I think that he might have played a couple innings in the majors, but not enough to be cemented as a major league player. I think he was on the Mets farm team, and pretty hot shot with a bat and a glove, apparently. And I love those old pictures of young Randy where he's not muscular yet. He looks nice and athletic and everything, but he's got the nice brown mustache and the long hair and baseball jersey and everything. Those are awesome. And you just think of the potential and what's to come in a guy's life at that time, when he's just thinking, yeah, I don't know if this baseball thing is working out. I'm good, but I'm not quite good enough to make a living out of this. Maybe I should go back into the wrestling and start lifting some weights with Dad and put on a few pounds, and along with Lanny, we'll get there. And by God, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it really did. And here's a fun little fact. Randy Savage started off his career as a gimmick called the Spider, which is even more comical because many years later, he would actually make an appearance in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, taking on, of course, the Spider, which was a very nice nod back to the early career of Randy Savage.
That's pretty cool. I never thought of that. Yeah, in the original Spider-Man movie, that they have Bruce Campbell as the ring announcer, and he brings out and he announces the name he has on his card is the Human Spider.
That's correct.
He just doesn't like it right off the bat. Like, kid, that sucks. He's the Amazing Spider-Man. It's more of the origin story, but of course he has to fight Bonesaw McGraw in order to get the winner's purse money for the evening, and just a very jacked up Randy Savage with the dyed black beard and hair and everything. I remember watching that in the theater. I didn't know he was in it or anything, and then just, who the hell is that, just for 1 second, and then like, oh man, that's Randy.
Yeah, Bonesaw's ready.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would have an opportunity when he got into the professional wrestling world to have some time spent teaming with his brother, working for their father over in ICW as well too, kind of because Angelo always saw it as the wrestling world was not doing the push for his sons that he believed they deserved, and so he was determined to go out there and make sure that both Lanny and Randy would be taken care of and would get the push that they were needing inside the professional wrestling world.
Yeah, and he had a belief in them, and they had worked hard on that. And I spoke earlier of Angelo Poffo's lifelong devotion to physical fitness and exercise and activity, and that's how he raised those guys, was from early age to like exerting themselves, to like the outdoors, to like exercise, to like improving yourself and improving your physical state and your body and all that. So I imagine Randy and Lanny were little projects for him too. He had been Angelo had been a fairly popular wrestler and a fairly well-known wrestler, but excuse me, I'm sure he thought that if he trained his kids endlessly and properly, that he could make them the bigger superstars than he ever was.
You bet. Let's talk a minute for about he had a feud with Jerry Lawler for a while there too, and this left him off in about June of 1985. Randy Savage, Jerry Lawler, a loser leaves town matchup, in which Jerry Lawler would become the victor. Randy Savage then leaving that particular area, and this would have been right at the time that he was looking to sign with Vince McMahon and head on over to the WWF.
Yeah, so this is probably a pretty fruitful time in Randy Savage's career, because he's gone through a few changes as a wrestler, from the Spider at the very beginning to becoming this kind of 70s macho love god, with the headbands and the big muscles and the tan and the big beard and everything. It was a cool look at that time, and I don't think he was known as the Macho Man quite yet, or maybe he was before WWE. I can't remember that aspect of it, but that's certainly the character he had going on, was starting to get the big muscles now, and just looking like a cool beach guy, and somebody that's just motivated to get to the top of every wrestling company he works for. So he was having some good matches and doing some of that stuff that he would be known for later, the coming off the top rope to the floor with the double sledge to the back and stuff like that. Other wrestlers didn't want to do that because it's hard on your knees and all that. But Savage was a crazy athlete, and he knew he could get away with doing some of that stuff. How about perfecting that flying elbow smash off the top rope? I mean, that was something that by the time he was in WWF, you could see that he'd been doing that for years. He had it perfect. and the fans in New York that had never seen him before were like, "Oh my God, that's absolutely spectacular!" So it's no wonder that he took off so well. He had been honing his craft in the territory system for years and years, and then being trained by his father for years before that.
And Paris saying Elias's elbow reminds him of Macho Man's. It's because a lot of guys like Elias have had time to watch those tapes and watch how Randy did these kind of things. I mean, he was a trailblazer and was able to leave behind that kind of legacy for young wrestlers and young talents to be able to get there and try to perfect and do exactly what he did. But it's something that really stood out, and it's already stood the test of time, the way that Randy performed it. And his matches were incredible. I mean, whether it be on the end of, before WWF or during his time with the WWF, he was always the one people remember for the strong matchups. Like, you got WrestleMania 3 with Ricky Steamboat, probably one of the best WrestleMania matchups in history. But again, even his match that he had with Ric Flair at WrestleMania, I think that one stands out quite well. And Flair had the nice color to him. His hair was all nice and red that night. And even his match with Hulk Hogan is leaps and bounds better than the match Hogan and Warrior had at WrestleMania 6.
Oh, for sure, because Savage could do so much more in the ring than Warrior could. Warrior had his little sequence, and that's all he could do, other than some kind of crappy selling here and there. And Savage had worked with all kinds of talents. We had talked about the various territories he had worked in. That's how it was back then. You could get very well-rounded as a performer by working in different territories with different booking philosophies, a whole roster of different opponents that you would practice your style with, and then a whole bunch of dressing rooms with veterans in there that hopefully you're open to talking to, keeping your ears open and your mouth shut, and doing a whole bunch of learning along the way. That's why WWF in the 80s did so good, is because they just plucked all the best guys from each territory, the guys that were ready to go, had all the experience, had a good gimmick, and were just hot, fresh, and ready to go kind of thing, right? And they didn't need any training. They didn't need a performance center or any of that stuff back then. But hey, it's a different game now with no territory system.
Yeah, it was. Before Randy would leave the WWF, again, he put over Scott Hall or Razor Ramon while he was fresh and new to the company, and then transitioned to a commentary role for some time, actually being one of the first commentaries on Monday Night Raw in its infancy. Him, Bobby Heenan, and Vince McMahon, I believe. Or was it? No, there was somebody else, wasn't there, at the time? No, it wasn't Vince yet on Monday Night Raw. It was Heenan, Savage, and I'm forgetting it. This
JR maybe, but
no, JR actually came in a little bit later, because that would have been 93 when Raw came about, and it would have been WrestleMania 9 when JR was brought into the company. I can't remember. It might be Monsoon, as Parrish said, or else it was Todd Pellegrini or whatever his name is.
Todd Pettengill.
Pettingale, that might be it. It's something along those lines. But again, the standout clearly is what I'm getting to is Savage and Heenan on the commentary desk together. I mean, those two are absolute royalty in everything they do. I loved the times of listening to Heenan and Savage together.
Well, and they always had to play Heenan would be the heel and Savage would be the face kind of thing. So they were always bickering and arguing with each other. A couple of those earlier WrestleManias are kind of funny too when they're on commentary together, because they work off each other quite nicely, and they get a little far away from the action in the ring sometimes, but it's still pretty good back and forth banter.
It really is. Savage would then leave the WWF, obviously. He would follow in the same vein as Hulk Hogan, heading on over to WCW, where, he had a very successful run as well, too. Become WCW champion on multiple occasions, spending time in the NWO. Then again, who didn't? But he was fantastic. And again, what he brought with him over to WCW, not only did he bring that star power, he brought that contract for Slim Jim over to them as well too.
Yeah, and that had been a problem with Vince. Vince was trying to punish him badly for having an outside contract that wasn't okayed by the WWE, but it was too lucrative for Savage. He was going to keep it no matter what. And I'm not sure how WCW felt about that. I think he kept doing the commercials and working for them. So that was probably a huge moneymaker for Randy at that time.
I bet it was. Then he spent a very, very short period of time working for TNA Wrestling before calling it a day on his professional in-ring career. He would then go on to have a very successful, no, I'm just kidding, a moderately talked about rap album that he put out, where he very clearly challenged a Hulk Hogan on the album itself, in the song "Be a Man," telling Hogan to step up and everything like that. I mean, clearly from what it's been documented, the two of them had a very strained relationship with each other. It was back and forth. Obviously, they've liked each other, they've worked together, but they've also had their bitterness with each other as well too.
Well, and Randy was a pretty intense guy. I think he had problems with a lot of wrestlers, and he was kind of paranoid. He thought people were trying to take his spot all the time. And from what I've read, just bits and pieces here and there, there were some friction between him and a number of wrestlers. You remember reading that book about Andre the Giant? He didn't like Randy Savage one bit. Stiffed him a whole bunch of times when they did wrestle, and there's not much Randy can do about that one. But yeah, he was an intense guy, and I don't think he trusted a lot of people, so he didn't have a lot of firm friendships throughout the business like Lanny did.
Yeah, really didn't. You know, I wanted to bring this up too, Papa Smokes, as we're kind of getting to the end of talking about the Poffo family. But one thing that you taught me about when doing Ring Respect Radio, and this calls back to a previous episode, is that the Randy Savage gimmick really comes from another wrestler before him, Pampiro Firpo, which was very interesting when we got to do research into the career of Pampiro Firpo. And I love telling that story to people about how you introduced me to him and how it was so uncanny how much the Savage used as an homage to Pampiro Firpo.
Yeah, and it wasn't like the entire gimmick. It was mostly that, "Woo yeah." That was Firpo's big common saying that he would always end his promos with, and Randy changed it up a little bit because he's got a different voice and all that. But that's a winner, right? Like that, it doesn't mean anything, but it sounds cool and it's fun. The fans like to say it. And how many people know that one from Randy Savage, right? That was a clear winner, and I'm sure Firpo didn't mind him using it, especially when it rose to such prominence.
Exactly. And again, I encourage people to go check out Pampiro Firpo, or even check out our Ring Respect Radio episode where we talked all about him as well too. That one, I really very fond of that episode and very fond of Pampiro Firpo's work after getting to find that out and getting to learn more about him.
Me too. And he was a guy that he was pretty popular heel, or, you know, not popular heel, but well-booked heel throughout the 60s and 70s. So undoubtedly he had either worked for the ICW and the Poffo family, or he at least knew them. But I bet you he worked for them. Like, I bet you Randy and Lanny watched him as little kids, and that kind of stuff sticks with you, right?
It really does. And yeah, so I mean, that's generally what I've got written down for all of the members of the Poffo family here on Ring Respect. Papa Smokes, how about yourself? Anything else that you wanted to add as we're kind of drawing to a close of this particular episode?
No, not really, but it's just sad and talking about a family now that Angelo has passed some years ago, but now Randy's gone and now Lanny's gone too. And I don't know if they either of them have kids or not, but it just feels like a whole legacy is gone now. And we'll always remember this family, especially because they made it to such prominence in the business and there's lots of tape on them. But it is just kind of sad as we lose the superstars of yesteryear, and it doesn't really feel like there's the same caliber of stars being brought up in the business today. There are a small handful, of course, but it's not like it used to be. And I don't know what that means for the business in the future. It is also a different business than at that time when they were trying to sell live tickets for most of their income. Now it's all about TV deals and stuff like that too. So I don't know. I still think they need to bring in, or to bring up and create more big superstars in the business, or else all the big ones are going to die off, and it doesn't seem like there's huge stars to replace them.
Yeah, and it's a very unfortunate thing, and very unfortunate too that the entire family, it was heart failure that got every single one of them, which is very weird considering that the athleticism and all about trying to keep fit and everything like that. I mean, it is a very sad thing, and again, our condolences to any of the members of the Poffo family that are still around, and anybody that were close friends with them as well too. What we hope to do with these episodes is just to bring people with a little bit more familiarity on the careers of these wonderful talents that, you know, paved the path for professional wrestling. And we're always glad that you guys have taken the time to join us here on Ring Respect Radio, of course, too. We are about to go and do a quick raid here, so we are going to go over to a brand new channel. Give them an Ole welcome as we send you over right now. For those watching on YouTube, where can you find us? Papa Smokes, where can the people reach out to you?
All right, I'll be on the playground at Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as Twitter. It's at smokes_papa. And then I'm on Twitch at papa_smokes_.
That's fantastic. And again, you know where you can find me all throughout the week. I do a thing or two, but you can check out the ticker down below. That should give you a little bit more of the info that you're looking for. Again, make sure to check out our good friends, our sponsors over at Rogue Energy, rogueenergy.com. You'll see that QR scanner code right below Pop Smokes there. You can click that QR code and head on over to rogueenergy.com. Or hey, there's the ticker down below. It also lets you know about that promo code OLE Pods. That's going to get you 10% off of your order. And if we want to encourage you to do all things great for OLE, check out OLE on Twitch, YouTube, and on all the socials. Give us a like, follow, and a subscribe, and do everything you can to keep pushing us and all the content creators here on the channel straight to the moon and getting the wider audience that we're looking for. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this doubleheader Thursday night, this episode of Ring Respect Radio. We will see you next Thursday, hopefully with a lot of great things to talk about once again. Take care, everybody.